I've been editing photos for over 10 years now. When I think back to those early days, man, it was chaos. I'd open a new photo and have absolutely no idea where to start. Every image felt completely different, so I'd try a new approach every single time. Different sliders, different tools, different tricks that I saw online, and sure, I'd get a few good results here and there, but never consistently. And that inconsistency was the most frustrating part. One photo would turn out great, and the very next one, I'd completely butcher it. It wasn't that I didn't know how to edit, it's that I didn't have a clear process. So if I had to start all over again today, with everything I've learned over the last decade, this is exactly how I do things differently. Looking back, I realized that the biggest mistake I made early on wasn't about which sliders to use or which software I preferred. It was that I didn't have a plan. Every time I opened a raw file, I was reacting to the photo in front of me instead of following a consistent approach. I'd think, this one feels too flat, so I'd push contrast, or this one needs more pop, so I'd crank saturation. But the problem with editing that way is you never really know when, or I should say, you never really know why something works. And then when you don't know why it worked, you can't repeat it. So if I had to start over today, I wouldn't chase styles or individual looks. I'd focus on building a simple, repeatable process that helps me understand the photo first before I touch a single slider. Because when you understand the light and you understand the tone and the intent behind your image, the edit almost completes itself. So the first thing I'd fix is my workspace, because the way your editing space is set up directly impacts the quality and consistency of your edits. When I first started editing, my Lightroom workspace was an absolute mess. I'd had every single panel open all the time. Basic, tone curve, HSL back then, split toning, calibration, and I'd bounce around them all like a pinball machine. I'd pull down highlights, jump to the tone curve, then over to color grading, then back to exposure again. It was just completely random. And the worst part was, every time I'd open a new photo, it felt like I was starting from zero. And that inconsistency, it really ate away at me because I knew I was capable of more. I just didn't have a repeatable process to get there. So if I could go back to those early days, I'd tell myself this: Mark, your workspace is your workflow. The more intentional your workspace is, the more intentional your edits become. These days, my Lightroom setup looks almost boring, but that's exactly the point. Everything is organized by purpose. I keep only the panels I actually need. I keep them visible. And I move them through, or I should say I move through them in a very specific order every single time. Basic section comes first, contrast and color comes next, shaping, light, and effects rounds things out. I'm not distracted by sliders that don't serve that stage of the edit. It sounds like a small thing, but simplifying my workspace completely changed how I edit. It eliminated decision fatigue, and it forced me to slow down and think about what each adjustment was actually doing. It's like cleaning your desk before starting a project. The clearer your space, the clearer your mind. So to jump right into it, one of the very first things that I recommend people do, and a lot of people don't even know you can do this, but I'll show you real quick, is this area right here around your photograph. This is what I consider to be kind of your background palette, but if you right click here, you can change this background color to whatever you want. You can change it to white, you can change it to dark gray, you can change it to darker gray, and you can change it to black. Now, I'm not gonna tell you which one is the best one, it's purely for your reference, but I actually toggle between these often. So whenever I'm finalizing an image, I will usually leave things on medium gray. I kind of think that this is the default that Lightroom comes with. But when I'm finalizing a photograph, especially if I'm trying to check things like exposure, I will often change this to white or I will change it to black just to kind of get a little bit of a different perspective. But just knowing that you can make those changes is very, very important because that's a large portion, or a very important part, is the area that is behind your photograph. That's a very important thing. So just being able to change that with a right click, and you can change it to any color that you want right here. Now this next tip I'm gonna tell you is absolutely huge. Every time I mention it, which isn't too often, but when I do, it gets great feedback. So as you can see, as I scroll down through here, I have every single panel open. And that is not the best way to do it. I used to think that that was, but it is clearly not. So if I start to close all these like this, and kind of close them one at a time, you can tell that that is somewhat of a cumbersome process, kind of going through each one of these and closing each section and going to the sections that you want. But if you come up here, you can click anywhere around here and just right click, you'll see this menu pop up and you'll see something here called solo mode. What solo mode is, when you enable it, it basically means that you can only have one section open at a time. And when you click on a section, it's going to close everything else. When you click on another section, it's going to close everything else again. I'll show you real quick. So if I have solo mode enabled here, you can see that it closed everything except color grading. Now, if I want to come up here to tone curve, watch this. I'll open tone curve, color grading closed. If I want to come back to the basic section opens, but tone curve closed. So you can only have one section open at a time, hence the name solo mode. If you are not familiar with what this is, or you don't have it enabled in your system, your Lightroom, I would 100% recommend that you stop this video right now and you go ahead and enable that in your Lightroom, because it is an absolute game changer. I think it's one of the best things that Lightroom has ever done from an organizational perspective to kind of keep things nice and tidy. Because remember, your workspace is your workflow. So I would highly encourage you to turn on solo mode. Now, the next thing that you can do is you can actually decide how you want your flow to go on your tools to look. So if you come up here, once again, right click anywhere, that same menu is going to pop up. You'll see something that says Customize Develop Panel. And these are all the sections right here: basic, tone curve, color mixer, all the way down to the bottom. If there is something that you are not going to use, I would recommend turning it off. So like lens blur, I don't think I've ever used lens blur, so I'm gonna completely remove that. I don't want that to show up anymore. Everything we've talked about so far, simplifying your workspace, removing distractions, and building a more consistent editing process, is really the foundation of my brand new course, The Landscape Editing Blueprint, Flat to Finished, which officially launches on October 11th. It's a complete start to finish system that walks you through my entire raw editing workflow, from flat, unprocessed files all the way to a polished final image, using a simple, repeatable approach designed specifically for landscape photographers. The full course normally costs $155, but for a few days it's actually included inside of this year's 5-day deal photography bundle, which runs through October 21st. The entire bundle costs less than my new course alone, and also includes an incredible lineup of other tools and tutorials from top photographers around the world. So if you've been finding value in what we've covered so far today and want to go deeper into my complete editing system, this is by far the most affordable way to do it, but it's only available during that short window. I'll put a link below in the description if you'd like to take advantage of this. Now, the most important part of Customized Develop Panel is not necessarily turning off things that you don't want, which is important to eliminate clutter. But what I like to do is to basically customize my develop panel to where I can start at the top and work all the way down. And that's gonna be my workflow. Like I mentioned a few moments ago, your workspace is your workflow. That's a very important part to remember here. So I always like to leave the basic section at the top here, and then tone curve. And then I like to have all my coloring things right here. So I'm gonna take calibration and I'm gonna move it up here above color mixer. So basically I now have calibration, color mixer, color grading. These are all three of the color enhancing sections right here at the top, or I should say in the middle area. And then I'm gonna leave detail right here. And then I have lens corrections, transform. I'm gonna bring effects up. I'm gonna bring effects right up here to where it's beneath color mixer. So this is my flow. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit save here. And once that opens back up, you can now see that this is all changed. That lens blur is no longer there. I have the basic section at the top here, which is where I always like to start because I like to balance the overall exposure. And what's funny is exposure is not just the exposure slider. Exposure is your highlights, your shadow, your white point, your black point. All of those things impact exposure. And that's the very first thing I always want to do, is get my palette that I'm working with to a balanced portion or a balanced area that I can really see what I'm working with. So I always want to start there. And then I go down to contrast, which is the tone curve. And then I have all three of my color enhancing sections right here. I do wish Lightroom would move the white balance to a color enhancing section, but that's okay. But this is my workflow right through here. Balance exposure here, I have clarity, texture, all of that kind of stuff right here is where I start. Then I immediately move to the tone curve, and then I immediately move to the calibration section, Then I can go ahead and enhance color. If I want to do color grading, I have that ability. And then the effects section, where I will often put a vignette. And then if I want to sharpen my photograph, I can do it right here. So that is my workflow. I start at the top and I work my way down. I mentioned this earlier about having a highly repeatable process is very, very important. Your workspace is your workflow. And this keeps me organized and keeps everything intentional on every single photo I edit. Regardless of what the photo looks like, I can go through the same repeatable process every single time. So one thing else that I really, really enjoy is that there is some amazing shortcuts that Lightroom gives us access to. One of my all-time favorite ones is the F key, which basically is gonna be kind of like lights out. It's only going to show you your photograph. And what's amazing is it's just really easy to access that. It's just one key, F. It removes all the distractions from your screen. No more tools, no more sections, no more histogram in the upper right-hand corner, no more thumbnail in the upper left-hand corner. It's just a really good way to remove all the distractions from your editing surface and just focus on the photograph. And it's just a great way to kind of finalize things, look for areas that need improvement, look for areas that you need to back things off a little bit or maybe enhance further. But hitting that shortcut key F is absolutely fantastic just to toggle everything on and everything off. Sticking with shortcut keys, if you've watched my videos for any amount of time, you know I'm a huge fan of before and after. The power of being able to see where an edit started, raw, and where you're at right now is undeniable. I cannot overstate the importance of that. And the backslash key is the best way to do that. Just by hitting backslash, you can see right here in the upper right-hand corner, this is before and where we're at right now, before and where we're at right now. This is fantastic. It's a great, what it does for me is it helps me determine if I'm pushing things too far. To be able to see where an edit began and where it lives right now is super powerful, because a lot of times when you're editing a photograph, your eyes become so used to what it looks like currently, and you lose perspective a little bit. You lose that initial frame of reference. So by hitting that backslash key and being able to toggle things back and forth is very, very important. And it's absolutely probably the shortcut key that I use most often. Immediately following the backslash key is that shortcut key F to kind of turn everything off around your image except just your image itself. Now this next tip that a lot of people don't know about because it's not hidden, but there's a little tiny icon on the left side of your screen that you can easily miss. And it's right here. And as you're editing your photo, kind of going through and doing your things, this is a huge portion of your screen right here. It's not a third of your screen, but I'd say, I don't know, maybe 25% of your entire screen is consumed by this side right here, which you never really use. I do find value in seeing this thumbnail up here, but a lot of times I don't need it. I don't need that entire bar active right there. I'd rather move it away so I have more actual space to edit my photograph. And if you look closely, you'll see this little tiny arrow right here. You can select that and it actually removes it. If you want to bring it back, you just hit that arrow again. Want it to go away? You just hit that arrow one more time like that and it goes away. So now I have much more space to work with. I can see my photograph much larger, and that's really important. I think that your workspace should only be the things that you need at that time. If I need to go back and see that thumbnail, I just can come over here and hover and hit it, and there it is. But if I want it to go away and see my photograph much larger, I just select that and it goes away. So closing that left, I don't know, I call it the navigation bar, or I'm not sure exactly what that whole section is, but closing that is gonna keep you a lot more focused. And I think that this looks much, much cleaner. So when you add all of this together, the clean background, solo mode, customized develop panel, a few simple shortcuts, and a workspace that actually is built around the way that you edit, it completely changes how editing feels. You're no longer bouncing between random tools or guessing what comes next. Everything has a purpose and a place. And that's really what this whole video has been about, creating an environment that supports creativity instead of getting in the way of it. If you want to see how this workspace approach fits into my complete start to finish editing system, my new course, the Landscape Editing Blueprint, Flat to Finished, just launched as part of the this year's 5-day deal, as I mentioned earlier. It's a part of the 2025 photography bundle running through October 21st. It's a short window, but it's a perfect time to go deeper and build the kind of workflow that makes editing feel effortless. Like I mentioned earlier, there will be a link in the description below if you'd like some more information on that. I hope you enjoyed this week's video. If you have any questions about anything I covered here, please leave those in the comments section below, and I will get back in touch with you as soon as humanly possible. And if you did enjoy this week's video, if you could, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And as always, I really do appreciate you carving out a little bit of time to spend it with me here today. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye.